Ever wondered what life is like in an eco-village? I was certainly curious. So I left the city and came to volunteer at the Molino de Guadalmesi, an eco-village in southern Spain. My name is Emily, and this is Life in an Eco-Village. In the last episode, we walked through a day in the life at the Molino. Now, let's dive deeper into the joys of garden-to-table dining. When we talk about garden-to-table dining, it's about using fresh, locally grown produce straight from a garden or a farm to create our meals with. In the case of the Molino, it's using fresh vegetables from the gardens and dairy and eggs that we collect from the chickens and the goats. In this episode, we'll take a closer look at what goes on in the creamery, the gardens, and in the kitchen. Let's begin in the creamery. We collect around 15 to 20 litres of milk a day. To make cheese, we first heat the milk to 38 degrees, then add a bit of rennet and sometimes yoghurt too. We then have to wait for around 45 minutes before sticking our hands in to collect the curd.
Now we are trying to separate the curd from the whey.
Yeah.
And then we drain it as much as we can before we pass it to the cast, to the mold.
The great thing about the Molino is how much you learn. Johnny showed me the process of cheese making just once, and then I was left to do it alone. After we put the cheese in the mould, it first goes into the fridge to continue draining. After a day, we then put salt around the edges to stop the draining, and then it's moved to the drying room. You can actually get a lot from one load of milk. After the main hard cheese has been made, if you heat the whey up again, you can make ricotta.
Yeah, but that's exactly the thing is that you have to do it slowly, because if you put a lot of pressure on it, it will go because exactly it's just holding like in a net. But if you press it, it will go through the holes.
Okay.
But if you keep it still and you don't move it much, if I just rise the pot very fast, it will drain.
Wow.
But you see the foam is keeping the fat together. Mm-hmm. And it's very delicate because...
We would eat this the same day it's made, and it was amazing. I've never had such fresh cheese that's been milked and made all in the same day. We'd often eat it as dessert with a dollop of honey on top, and honestly, it's the most delicious thing ever. When making yoghurt, it's a similar process of controlling the heat. First, it's heated to 90 degrees Celsius. Then we take the pot to the river to cool rapidly to 40 degrees Celsius. While at 40 degrees, we quickly jar it and wrap it in blankets in a thermal container, which we then leave in a warm, sunny spot all day. Then around 8 p.m. that same day, we have to move the jars into the fridge to rapidly cool again. Once it's cold, it's ready to be eaten. Now, let's go to the gardens. There are 3 gardens where we grow vegetables and aromatics, while the fruit trees grow in the surrounding areas. The work in the garden is never finished, but it's still super satisfying to see how the food flourishes when you take good care of it. Before coming to the Molino, Nines was working in a meditation centre that helps connect people with healthy eating habits. She would host cooking groups, experimenting with different flavours from the wild plants they grew in the garden. She's always followed principles of permaculture and biodynamics, even since she was a child, learning from her father, who's a farmer. Here are 4 lessons I learned from Nines in the gardens. Number 1. The plants can get stressed when moving, much like humans, so it's better to plant new plants early in the morning or later in the evening when it's not too hot, and to give them lots of water to help them acclimatise. Number 2. The gardens are designed strategically to optimise growth for each individual plant. For example, a plant that needs lots of nutrients will be planted next to one that needs less, so they all get what they need without any competition. The taller flowering plants are used as windbreakers and to attract more wildlife, while other large plants with large leaves, like artichoke, are planted at the end of the beds. We cut the leaves off of these plants to place on top of the soil to use as extra protection from the wind, as well as to let the nutrients sink into the soil. Number 3. The weeds that we pull up every day need to be given to the chickens to chew on, rather than going straight into the compost. They're so strong and invasive that they would keep growing in the compost. Number 4. Nines follows the cycle of the moon using a method known as lunar gardening. The theory is that as the gravitational pull of the moon has an effect on water, which is of course why we have tides, this also affects the moisture levels in the soil and therefore has an impact on how the plants grow. It's an ancient practice in agriculture that many farmers still use today. There are books and publications like the Farmer's Almanac in the US that map the lunar cycle, indicating the best times to plant each different type of vegetable. As Nines says, there's no scientific evidence that it works, but there's no harm in following it anyway. We do a harvest every day in the early afternoon before lunch. Even if they're ready, we can't harvest all the vegetables in one go because it'd be too much to eat. A fun fact I learned about asparagus is that once it's established, it grows super fast and needs to be harvested every day, otherwise it very quickly turns into this tall, bushy plant.
Voy a acercarme porque me ha mandado un mensaje hace un rato, pero no le llega mi respuesta. Yo creo que está.
They just called me the other day and they are... Yeah, it would be... así no avanzamos, con este tipo aquí que no calla, no avanzamos, así no hay manera. Mucho
Como para 2 personas, yo te diría, a ver, es que tú fíjate, si yo hago esto o hago esto, 5 y con esto le ponemos un poquito de aquí, mejor picarlo. Levanta la mano.
Sí, estirándome poco a poco.
All the vegetables are left in open boxes in the kitchen, and the kitchen door is usually kept open during the day. The stone structure keeps it pretty cool even in the summer. We also buy food from a local organic market to top up any vegetables that we're not growing and to pick up other bits like grains. I'm a huge foodie and love cooking. So to be able to cook with fresh vegetables we harvested that same day was very exciting and incredibly satisfying. One of the nicest things about living in the community and taking it in turns to cook for each other is that we can all learn from each other. Everyone has their own quirks in the kitchen, and it's wonderful to bring those different qualities together.